says, begins this week, Eile told us Noach ish tzadik, Tomim hoya b'doyrosav, es Elohim his halech Noach. So we know, Rashi straight away begins in the following way. Rashi says, second Rashi on the parasha, b'doyrosav yesh miraboseinu doshan oisoi l'shvach, meaning there are many that say that we darshan, that the very fact that you say that Noach was an ish tzaddik, that means that's a gavaldig shvach. That means kol shekain she'ilu hoya b'dor tzaddikim hoya tzaddik yaisa. No, he was a tzaddik in that generation. But of course, if he would have lived in a generation of greater tzaddikim, then he himself would have been a greater tzaddik. And then Rashi tells us, again, it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Kuvches, the yesh darshan oisoi legnai. And there are many that darshan this in a derogatory manner, legnai. That means that fi doiroi hoya tzaddik. Of course, only according to his generation he was a tzaddik. V'ilu hoya b'doirish shel Avram hoya nechshav l'klum. But if he would have been alive at the generation when Avram Avinu lived, then he would have been nothing. And the question that all the Mefarshim, if you open up all the Sfarim on the Chumash on this week's parasha, many of them begin with this question. And the question is a simple question on the Gemara. It's a machlokes, as we just mentioned, between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish and the Gemara over there in Sanhedrin. And the question is like this: if you have the opportunity to darshan it l'shvach, if you can darshan Noach being a tzaddik, and he would have been a greater tzaddik had he lived in a different generation with tzaddikim, why on earth would you darshan it l'gnai? Why would you darshan Noach to be, shkoyach, he's a tzaddik in this generation, but if he would have lived, Avram, he would have been l'klum, Rashi says, in Gemara. Why would you do that? If you have an opportunity to look at things in a positive way, why would you look at things in a negative way? That's the question. And that's what I want to address in the next few moments, which I believe to be a very, very important idea that we can take from this parasha. So the truth of the matter is that even though it looks like a gnai, even though it looks like they're saying, well, he's a tzaddik in this generation, had he lived by Avram, he would have been nothing. Looks like a gnai, looks derogatory, but really it's not. There's a tremendous shvach, there's a tremendous positive that's hidden deep within that drosha, deep within that answer, and that is very simple like this: that maybe, that if Noach would have taka lived in the generation of Avram Avinu, he maybe wouldn't have been on that level. But where was he now? Where was he in the generation that he lived, which was his dor, the dor of the Mabul? He was a tzaddik. And therefore, what we're saying over here is that Enoch Hanami, if he would have been in the generation of Avraham, maybe he wouldn't have reached that level. But he was a tzaddik in this generation. And this generation was a very difficult generation. It was a generation where they were doing kol davar asa ba'olam. Ad kedei kach Chazal ask us, that we know the Gemara tells us, Shaloi nechdam dino el ala gezel, that the Mabul came, be'ikah, the gzar din, the verdict, the psak. The hammer went down because of gezel that was stealing. But they were doing everything else asa. They were doing kol davar asa sheba'olam. True, the final makkah b'patish, the hammer blow, that was the stealing, but they were doing everything asa. And here we've got a yid that's swimming against the tide. We've got a yid that's going against all of his surroundings. We know famously the Rambam says, Odom moishech achas svivov, that a person generally is drawn into his surroundings. What we're saying over here is they're not necessarily saying it b'loshen genai, but in the hidden works of that drosha, what they're saying is true. And Avraham Avinu's dor, it wouldn't have been anything like Avraham Avinu. But look where he is. He still is a tzaddik, even with everything else that's going on around him. A Talmud once came to the Heiliger Arizal, and he said, Rebbe, I have a question. I don't understand. Do you think our Avodas Hashem really makes a difference to the Rabbeinu Shalom? Do you think the Rabbeinu Shalom really cares about what we do? We open up a siddur and we daven. We put on tefillin. We put on tzitzis. We wash negel vasa. We bench. We do all of these things. Do you think the Rabbeinu Shalom really has hana? Do you think he cares? Like, come on. Look at the generations of tzaddikim throughout our history. Go even to the Amoraim, the Tanoim, the Rishonim, the Achronim. These people knew how to do Avodas Hashem. What do we know? What's our Avodas Hashem worth? And Arizal answered in the following way. He answered with a mashal, and he said there was a king in Egypt, and this king in Egypt was given, as many kings are generally given presents from other countries, and he was given a specific bird that was able to speak. It was an amazing thing. Everyone was just astounded. Wow, generally animals don't speak. Here's a bird that's speaking. It was amazing. And when anyone came to visit the king, he would show them this parrot. This wasn't even a parrot, it was like a bird. And he showed it to them. Wow, look, it can speak. And it was just amazing. And someone said to him, I don't understand. And this is what the Arizal was coming to ask. What's the big deal? We all can speak. Every single one of us can speak. And no one walks around and say, oh, wow, you know how to talk. We all talk. We know how to talk. What's the big deal? So there's a bird that knows how to talk. What's the answer? Zog the Heilige Arizal. Very simple. An animal is not about us. There's no seichel. We are about us. So when we speak, it's not a big deal. When an animal speaks, it's something unusual. It's something that most animals don't do. And therefore, it's astounding. And therefore, it's astonishing. And therefore, it's interesting. Said the Heilige Arizal, this is what's going to answer your question. He said, now we can understand in a small way the avodas Hashem that we have on our personal level and what it means to the Rabbeinu Shalom. He says it's not a big deal. At the time of the Tanoim, of the Amoraim, of the Baal Shem Tov, the Heilige Vilna Gaon, the Chassam Sofer, Kiva Eiga, to be a tzaddik in that generation, no, everybody was doing it. Wasn't a big deal. Aber zog the Heilige Arizal in our generation, what do we have? And he was talking about in his times, right? What do we have? And yet we're still oisik in avodas Hashem. We're still doing something. That, said the Arizal, is the answer. It's astounding. Just like that parrot, that bird was astounding. Wow! It was able to talk because no one else of that animal kingdom talks. That's amazing. So too, the Rabbeinu Shalom looks at us and he sees no one else is doing it, but you are. And that's amazing. And that's astonishing. And that's something to think about. That's pshat in Rabbi Yochanan over here in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which Rashi brings in the second Rashi of our parsha. L'doiraisav, to his generation, means, of course, on some level it was obviously a gnai, because Rashi says it was. But it goes deeper than that. Yes, in the door of Avram, he wouldn't have been Avram. But he was a tzaddik within his generation. How hard is it to swim against the tide? How hard is it to go against what everyone else is doing? And that's a mistake that many of us have with our avodas Hashem. We think to ourselves, what's the big deal? Do you think the Rabbeinu Shalom really cares? We came down to Shachris, we opened up a siddur, we put on our tefillin. Did we feel anything? Did we have any kavanah? Were we thinking about the Rabbeinu Shalom? Was this what's going through our head? I hope so, but if not, do we walk out of Shachris and say, what a waste of time. Tomorrow I'm not even going to bother. I davened mincha, I tried to think of the words for the first few seconds. The next few minutes I was out completely. No shaychus. We put on tefillin, we watch Nega Vasa, we bench, we give stuff, we try and do so many mitzvahs, we try and work closer and closer to get to the Rabbeinu Shalom. But do you think the Rabbeinu Shalom really cares? Do you think the Rabbeinu Shalom has any hana? Come on, the Chassam Sofer, the Chofetz Chaim, the Kiva Eiga, the Baal Shem Tov, the Mezrich Magid, these are tzaddikim. These the Rabbeinu Shalom looks at and says, wow, Chob Hana. No, we're making a big mistake. And the mistake is being very spelled out in this week's parsha. And that is, it's very easy to be a tzaddik when everyone else is a tzaddik. But when everyone else is not oisik in what you're oisik in, and afal pikin, you plug away. You do it again and again. And you try. And you show your devotion. And you show your connection. And you show your ratzon to the Rabbeinu Shalom that you want to do it. And the Rabbeinu Shalom says, I have so much hana from you. From your small avodas Hashem. From the small step that you put in. From the small effort that you put closer to the Rabbeinu Shalom, he looks at it and he holds it up in high regard, higher than any regard, than all of the Tanoim and the Amoraim and the Tzaddikim from previous generations that they got, because every single one of you are swimming against the tide. We're living in a world, we're living in a generation where it's crazy out there. I don't have to tell you. We're living in a crazy world. We're living in a world where people are doing crazy things, the likes of which were done at the time of Parshas Noach. Ad Kedei Kach. We're living in a world where people are oisik in things that they haven't been oisik in many, many years. And we're seeing it, we're experiencing it. And the Rambam says, Odom Moshech Achas Vivov. We should be there! But we're not. We're in the Beis Medrash. And we're trying. And we're putting in our effort. And is it hard? Sure, it's hard. Do we always experience the most amazing simcha? Maybe not. Do we always experience the greatest hana after Shemona Esrei? Maybe not. But just remember, every effort that you put in, every small step that you take in the right direction, gives the Rabbeinu Shalom the greatest hana he can ever get from that. And I'll end with a Mordecai Maisa from the Heilige Ishbitzer. The Ishbitzer was walking with his Hasidim, and one of his Hasidim was an elderly man. His name was Reb David. He's a Talmud of the Ishbitzer, and he's walking behind his Rebbe. And the Rebbe's Einikel, the Rebbe's grandson, a small little boy, a 7-8-year-old boy maybe, was trying to run to catch up to his grandfather. So he sort of pushes this chassid out the way and runs towards his grandfather, Heilige Ishbitzer. This chassid wasn't taking any of that. He said, Yingela, a bissel derech eretz. Bissel derech eretz, what are you doing? Push me out the way to get... So he says, well, why should I give you derech eretz? Why do you deserve derech eretz? So this chassid, Reb David, wasn't taking this. This is not Beseda. Right? What do you mean, why do I deserve derech eretz? Chutzpah. He says, little child, first of all, I'm older than you. And second of all, I saw the Chayzim Leblin. I saw the Chayzim Leblin. For that alone, I should get derech eretz. So the Einikel of the Ishbitzer said, what are you talking about? My grandfather's much more holy than the Chayzim Leblin. How can you say that? So this Chassid, Reb David, in those days it was a mukubal thing. I wouldn't suggest doing it nowadays. Gave him a patch and sent him on his way. Now this boy was very upset. Very upset. What do you mean? My Zayda? Much bigger than the Chayzah. So that night, he went over to his grandfather, went to the Zayda, the Heilige Ishbitzer, and he said, Zayda, I want to ask you a kasha. Isn't it true that you're greater than the Chayzim Leblin? The Ishbitzer was taken aback, like, whoa, me? Chas v'shalom. But then he said he wanted to impart a very important lesson to his Einikel, to the future generation. He said, I want to tell you something. I'm not holier than the Heilige Chayzim Leblin. The Chayzim Leblin was tzaddikim. I don't come up to his toes. But I will tell you one thing. The Chayzim Leblin is no longer in this world. He's not alive anymore. He cannot advance his avodas Hashem. He can't get closer to the Rabbeinu Shalom. I'm alive. I can do it. I can do something that the Chayzim Leblin cannot. Rabbi say, every single one of us are alive, Baruch Hashem. We have tremendous opportunities. We're living in a world where we have to mamish swim against the tide. We're living in a world where we have to go against what they're telling us and they're showing us and everything they're trying to teach us. And we have to remember that our avodah, the avodah of sitting in the Beis Medrash, a new zman, a new opportunity for growth, a new opportunity to closeness to the Rabbeinu Shalom, a kesher with Yiddishkeit. From all the things that we offer over here, there's so much to gain. Whether it's the halacha, whether it's the siddur, perish hamilos, whether it's the musa, the ashkafa, the gemara, the ian, the bekiyas, the kumzits, the trips, whatever it may be. Rabbi say chaparayim, because the Rabbeinu Shalom holds your avodah, however small compared to previous generations, to be so gavaldic, so special, so dear to his heart, that we should remember that every step we take is a step in the right direction. The Rabbeinu Shalom should give us the siyata d'shmaya and bracha v'atzlocha, this incredible zman, that all of us, be'ez Hashem, get that connection to Yiddishkeit, get that connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom, so that be'ez Hashem, we become one with the Rabbeinu Shalom, one with this Torah, and one with Yiddishkeit. Shkoyach.